In 2016, Soraf released Devil Daggers, a fast-paced shooter that placed you in an abyssal arena to face endless legions of demons. I knew about this game, but I have never played it. But when Soraf released Hyperdemon in 2022 and I saw the trailer, I knew that this is an experience I have to try at some point. And it took me 2 years, but I finally did. The way I decided to structure this video is that I want to take you on a journey of me discovering what Hyperdemon is all about, starting at the very beginning. The tutorial starts with the basics of movement. You can jump or rocket jump, and you can dash, slide or bunny hop. The movement feels on point and very familiar if you've played any other arena-ish FPS games before. For combat, you can either hold left click for a continuous stream of daggers, or tap it for a shotgun dagger blast. Killing enemies then drops red gems that you can either pick up to power up your finger gun, or unleash it as powerful laser attacks. If you touch any enemy, you instantly die. There is no HP in this game. Then the game shows you the only 4 enemy types that you will be fighting over and over again and puts you to a humbling final test, getting your score above 25, which I failed to do for about 5 minutes. Unlike in Devil Daggers, where the score increases the longer you survive, in Hyperdemon it's sort of the opposite. The score is always going down and you increase it by killing demons. The faster you kill them, the faster they spawn and the higher your score. That is pretty much the game. There is no narrative, no progression, either in terms of upgrades or loadouts, or in terms of levels or maps. You spawn in the same hellish arena and fight to the death. It is an extremely narrow, distilled experience. This was one of my biggest worries coming into Hyperdemon. Can such a simple gameplay loop be fun, and for how long? There was only one way to find out: my first ever run. Despite my incredible high score of -0.6, it was at this point I already knew that I am not going to regret buying this game. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, the visuals. I don't think it is an exaggeration to say that Hyperdemon is visually the most innovative first-person shooter I've ever seen. It is a distorted, nightmarish attack on your senses, with constant flashes of light and what seems like visual noise, and yet there will be these very brief split-second moments of incredible vistas of utter destruction you just unleashed. And against all reason, what starts as a sensory overload very quickly starts becoming clear as your brain adapts, making more and more sense out of the surreal mess on your screen each run. It is amazing to witness. It feels like learning a new language. Enemies, power-ups, weapons, bombs all have a distinct color, making them easy to identify at a glance. And it has to be this way because with the frenetic pace of combat, that is all you are going to get before you have to react. The second ingredient of Hyperdemon's visuals is the player's field of vision. Usually, the higher you set your FOV, the more space distorts, giving the weird fisheye look, and it makes me feel really sick really quickly. So I tend to stick to 90 to 100-ish FOVs in games. In Hyperdemon, through some kind of black magic, high FOVs feel perfectly natural, giving you a spherical vision of up to 180 degrees. Sometimes it feels like even more. The default FOV is already set higher than usual at around 120, but after around 7 hours of gameplay, I decided to try 180 FOV and I think this run demonstrates its advantages. Ignore the fact that I miss all of my laser shots, instead focus on just how much of the arena I see and how it allows me to dodge enemies that I would usually be blind to. Hyperdemon gives the best visual awareness of any FPS I have ever played. It might sound like a joke to you if you are seeing this game for the first time, but I am dead serious. Even enemies behind you get projected into your field of vision as red silhouettes, so you can never get surprised. Of course, this all happens in split seconds. You do not have time to analyze or think about your decisions. It's all just instinct, and it's fascinating to feel your brain slowly get used to this stimuli and then have your fingers start reacting to it. The sound is as precisely crafted as the graphics and works with them in perfect unison. There is no soundtrack, but every action and every enemy has a distinct noise so even with your eyes closed, you can tell exactly what's happening. After around 10 hours, I felt the game's movement really click for me. Hyperdemon has the jump and the dash button bound to the same key, and you can't change this, which is fairly difficult to get used to, but after I rebounded from space to shift, it started feeling a lot more natural. I would jump when I wanted to jump, dash when I wanted to dash, and would be able to fully switch my focus back to just killing as many enemies as I could. This culminated in a 1 in a million run, where despite being clueless about so many of the game's mechanics, I somehow managed to get past the centipede boss and get a really good score for my current skill level. These first 10 hours was just 100% on the fun meter the whole time, and I just loved it. It would then take me almost another 10 hours to improve my score again. As I was getting more comfortable with Hyperdemon's mechanics, I had time to realize I didn't know why certain things are happening and what they do. For example, during the run, there will be power-ups that spawn in the center of the arena. There are two ways to pick them up. If you hold right-click while doing it, you will get a massive pink laser attack, which felt hard to make good use out of. If you pick it up normally, the vision distorts, time slows down, and you get little gems around your hand, but I didn't actually know what that does. I felt more powerful, but was it just the audio and visuals, or was I actually dealing more damage? Most of this is explained in the tutorial, but at that point the game is pretty overwhelming and I completely missed it. I also realized I have no idea how to efficiently kill the centipede, and that my high score run was a complete fluke. I would just watch my score tick down as I hopelessly jumped around it, feeling like I am doing the exact same thing I was doing before, but it just wasn't dying. Thankfully, Hyperdemon does have tools built in to help you learn. You can watch a replay of any of your runs, and there is also a leaderboard, and you can watch the replay of any of the players on it and learn from the best. But I really strongly did not want to do this. Up until this point, I wasn't focusing on the score or correct gameplay at all. I was just enjoying the absolute mayhem and learning the movement. I feared that by looking at a replay of the best players, it would sort of ruin that experience for me, as I would suddenly see all the little tricks and optimizations they do, and the chaos would turn into a solved puzzle, where I would just need to spend many more hours improving my execution until I would be able to solve it myself. So instead I turned to a written guide on the Steam forums that explains some of the hidden mechanics of Hyperdemon. It did answer all of my questions, but by skimming the text I also picked up some of the high-level knowledge I was trying to avoid for now. Specifically, just how important and good lasers are and that the best way to use the power-ups is as lasers comboed with big red gems for a crazy homing missile attack. The gems around your arm do improve your DPS, but they are also temporary. They get used up as you shoot, which made them feel a lot worse to me. Overall, the guide was well written, very comprehensive, and I immediately became a lot worse at the game after reading it. Hyperdemon is a game that requires your full, undivided concentration. It is part of what makes it so satisfying to succeed in. In my best runs, I feel in a flow state of absolute focus. And you need to reach that because one mistake, one fumble with the controls, a split second of indecision about which enemy to go for, and your run is over. Whether I wanted it or not, my mind was now infected with the knowledge that what I've been doing until now is not optimal, and that I need to change how I play to improve. Fortunately, playing Hyperdemon is not the first skill I've learned as a human, so I knew the improvement is often accompanied by a temporary drop in performance as you internalize the new knowledge. But in Hyperdemon, this process feels a lot more frustrating than usual. My biggest problem was with the red gems. The way it works is that when you hold right click, you vacuum them all in as lasers. You then release them into the big red gem for a massive homing missile attack. Simple, right? The problem is there is an enemy, the spider, who sucks up all the gems from the arena and turns them into bombs. While he's sucking them in, holding right click will no longer pull the gems in. You need to either kill the spider or aim and click on each gem individually to be able to turn it into a laser. A very common scenario for me was that I would hold right click to suck in gems to try and unleash the homing attack, only for them to not come, because a spider spawned somewhere, and in the few seconds it would take me to process why nothing is happening, I would die. You can also pick up and hold the big red gems, which will sometimes happen by accident while trying to suck in the small red gems, which makes you stop shooting, so all the small red gems will fly into you as ammo for your handgun, ruining the combo. I can feel my blood pressure rising just talking about this. But step by step, little by little, I was getting a lot better at the game. I was pulling off really awesome attacks and plays I didn't even know were possible, and none of it mattered, because I could not beat my high score. I needed the game to validate my improvement. Even on the few runs where it finally all came together, I would not be able to get past the stupid centipede. At this point, I realized that I'm more frustrated than enjoying myself when playing Hyperdemon, so naturally, as a well-adjusted adult, I decided to stop. Just kidding, of course. This game is surprisingly hard to quit. It is extremely addictive. After you fail and die, you get a burst of frustration, but before you can even process this emotion, your fingers already press the R button and you are going again, and this is going to be the run, the one where everything comes together, and if not, then the next one, or the next one after that. Many times while playing this game, I would notice I have a parched throat and that I wanted to go grab a drink like an hour ago. It is very powerful at keeping you engaged. I took a break for 2 days, came back and beat my high score pretty much immediately. This felt very liberating, because it felt like it freed me to have fun again. Of course, on one hand, these are silly, illogical ways the human mind works, but since the score is the only objective measure of success you have in Hyperdemon, it is very easy to fall into this trap of letting it dictate your enjoyment. I want to make it clear that in this whole segment I'm not exactly trying to blame the game for my experiences. A lot of the frustration is self-inflicted because of the very, let's say, special way my brain is wired, but the skill issue will happen to everyone sooner or later in Hyperdemon, and there is nowhere to run from it. No alternative paths. The game is the game, and you either quit or get better. So my chart of fun would look something like this after my first 20 hours. And from this point on, it went like this. I learned I can hide the score indicator at the top of the screen, which helped me ignore it, and I internalized the basics of the game well enough at this point that I could yet again shift my focus to just killing as fast as possible, and it felt like I ascended, like I am playing at 2 times speed compared to before. I would only be conscious at the beginning and end of the run. The rest was just a blur, and it felt so good. Hyperdemon just has every single satisfying FPS mechanic perfectly blended together. The most important one is the movement, of course, and it's incredible. 1 second you're sliding under enemies only to Goomba stomp a scuttler and leap into the air, get a moment to assess the battlefield before diving right back down into the action. When an enemy is about to kill you, it will flash its eyes and make a high-pitched noise. And in that split second, you can use dash to dodge out of the way, which does a cool slow motion, and it makes you feel like you're in the Matrix, like you see the future. You get the satisfaction of precision aiming from lasers and of tracking aim from your dagger spray. One of the best feelings in FPS is switching targets before the enemy is dead, but once you've already fired enough damage that you know you will kill it a moment later, and that's also present here. I also love how, unlike in pretty much any other FPS, in Hyperdemon you are always on the offensive. You don't retreat to regenerate health or reload or get a better strategical position. No, you move forward, and there are no animation locks that let you breathe out. It is an insanely intense but adequately short experience. The whole run only takes a few minutes at most until you get to the end. Oh yeah, there is an end. The game sort of spoils that something is waiting for you, but nothing can prepare you for it. Once reality itself starts breaking around you, to kill this abomination, you need to destroy the black orb in its center 6 times. If you don't move fast enough or miss, it will catch you and you die. If you are on point, it dies within a couple of seconds. It is the perfect finish to Hyperdemon. Short, sweet, and incomprehensible, tying it all together into just a unforgettable game. That is not to say I never encountered struggle again, or I never will in the future. I can have the best runs of my life one day, followed by me not being able to get past the first 10 enemy packs for half an hour the very next day. But I learned to come to peace with that. You cannot force Hyperdemon. Sometimes you just can't get in the zone, and that's okay. I want to end the video by letting Hyperdemon speak for itself, by showing you the current peak of mastery over this game, the world record by Tenkuo. Pay close attention, because if you look carefully, you will notice a couple of small differences from my gameplay. I can't imagine how many cycles of frustration into Nirvana becoming this good takes, and I will probably never find out, because this record is recent. The boundaries of this game are still being pushed. If your eyes have not turned inside out at this point, I think you have passed the first test and you are ready to try this game. You don't need to be an FPS god to have fun, and it's worth it just to feel your brain learning to interface with this hellish dimension. Thanks for watching.